Looks like we're good. Let's jump into it.
What are you drinking tonight?
This is sherry.
But it's yellow.
But it is yellow. No,
Or
this
white.
is this is sherry fino.
Yes, and what's sherry fino?
It is basically like a white wine sherry. Fino meaning fine.
Oh, so it's fine sherry.
It's fine.
It's just fine.
It's just fine.
It's just fine.
It's the lightest, least aged sherry.
Okay.
So
How
it's
is it?
kind of like a white wine with more of a kick, some real flavor to it.
It's definitely got that sherry smell.
Right. Oh, it smells
Yeah.
like you're drinking something very strong, but it's not
Yeah.
strong.
I like that.
Yeah. It's
I love that you're trying all these new things.
Trying new things is the most fun thing to do.
It really is.
To me, it is.
I love that time you went and you got like 2 or 3 kinds of sake at Molly's.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, they were all so different, and yeah, I love new stuff.
Yeah, and you can try all this stuff for about what it costs to go to a movie, so it's not exactly a big investment.
I love that. I played you a couple of songs in the car the other day that
Yeah.
I've heard on 102.3. One of them was called Leaving the Light by Genesis Olowu.
Right.
It reminded me of 90s, like dark, poundy, like a little industrial music. You said it reminded you of, was it the Jesus and Mary Chain?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, and Mary Chain. Yeah.
And then the other song I played you, what was it?
Was it Goose?
Yes.
Yeah, Goose.
Goose.
I would actually recommend anybody to check them out.
Have you heard more than just the one song I played you?
You played 2, and they were very different.
I played you 2 Goose songs?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of them was Dripfield. That's been the one on 102.3.
Right.
It's so cool.
Right.
A lot of their other stuff I don't think you would like.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't listened to a lot of it. But they have a playlist on Spotify that is their entire repertoire that's 33 hours of music.
So maybe I won't recommend anybody to check it out. If you're interested in new...
Yeah, Dripfield is great.
Yeah.
I need to listen to more. I liked about half of it. The reason I'm not sure you would like all of it is because some of it is a bit jam bandy.
Yeah, that's odd.
And you don't really like jam band stuff.
Well, then I would expect you to like that even less.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't really like jam band stuff.
Ah, right.
But Dripfield is not jam bandy at all. It's a bit electronic. It's a little out of the box.
It's sort of like early Faith No More, is what it struck me as.
Huh. Pretty epic.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was going to say is, I love that at our advanced age, we still fall in love with new music.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
there's something about stuff being new that's just exciting.
It is great. Yeah. I can also shout out Turnstile. There's somebody I checked out recently. Yeah, I love new music, and I hope I never lose that interest in that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
me too. And at this point, I don't think we will.
Right.
We're past the point of where the brain is all malleable, and everybody loves new music in their teens and their early 20s because they've got all these memories forming and your brain's different, and then that's the stuff you like for the rest of your life. Well, we're past that now. So I think we are going to like new music for the rest of our lives, and I feel really fortunate about that.
Yeah, it just kind of occurred to me as you were saying that. Like, I wonder if part of what I like is that when I fell in love with music, I obviously didn't know how it was made. And I didn't know what was making all the sounds, or maybe I knew it was guitar, but I didn't know what amps they were using, and couldn't tell the difference between a Les Paul and a Stratocaster by hearing it. And one of the things I like about hearing new stuff and music that's beyond me is hearing that thing where I don't exactly know what those guys are doing. Where I'm like, oh, and even if it's on a creative side, I mean, they're not necessarily... I mean, we're kind of out of sounds and colors. Like, we all know what the 64 crayons are.
Right.
But at the same time, somebody's combined it in a new way, and I don't really understand how they're combining it yet. Mm-hmm. And I love that feeling of hearing stuff and not knowing exactly what's, or not kind of... I can't pull the curtain back on it. I just don't understand it well enough.
Yeah.
And I love that feeling of it just being, it's like it's magic then.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes when you sort stuff out, you're like, well, it's still great, but It's not magic
You saw
anymore.
how the sausage got made. Not
Exactly.
not that it's gross how music is made, but I bet some discerning listeners would say, "Oh no, we don't know all 64 colors because there's microtones and there's all kinds of time signatures that we're not
Sure.
used to, and there's all kinds of ways to break the box." What would you say to that?
I would say if you want to smear other things than crayons on the paper,
Well, like me and my walking around the house, like grabbing things and making percussion out of them.
yeah. No, of
I mean,
course.
that's not out of the box.
That was a
far.
gross generalization. And you can always break the rules and you can use markers instead of crayons and whatever. But in general, we're only working with so many sounds and so many combinations of chords and notes.
Yeah, at least in popular music that is going to go.
Yeah, and that's
on
what's
radio.
in some ways that's what's awesome about it is that people keep finding new interesting things within the confines of. It's sort of what I say about in songwriting classes or whatever. I say sometimes, like, if you have discovered a brand new chord progression that has never been used before, no one's ever figured out this sequence of chords before, you probably have discovered a chord progression that sounds bad.
Yeah.
Because people have figured, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason no one else did that. It's not that no one else thought about it. They just thought about it and were like, this doesn't sound good.
But what if you are, was it Rachmaninoff who wrote The Rite of Spring? Was it?
Stravinsky.
Stravinsky, right. Okay. And you know the whole story about the first playing of The Rite of Spring in a concert hall.
Oh, of course. I was,
With riots, because I just heard a podcast about this 2 days ago, about, there were old ladies beating on each other with canes. There was bloodshed.
People lost their minds.
People lost their minds because what they were hearing was so dissonant compared to what they were used to hearing.
Right.
And actually the podcast went into some interesting stuff about the what's going on in his brain.
Yeah.
I was also working out at the time, so I couldn't retell the story very well. But could we not still? Could that not apply to what you just said?
It will absolutely happen. Of course, it will. Yeah.
So it takes some sort of genius, adventurous genius, to find the right way to break our brains again before the box gets bigger, before we find chord progressions that you've never heard before that sound terrible, that suddenly become exciting and new.
And eventually we will have the 128 color box.
A bigger box of crayons.
I guess maybe in a way, literally in terms of, which, by the way, Stravinsky's Rite of Spring is why I wanted to go to college for composition. That is the specific piece of music that made me want to be a composer.
Wow. You wanted to break people's brains like that?
Yeah.
Probably you did.
Probably I did, yeah. That might have been it.
It was a Radiolab episode, by the way. If you want to read about it, or if you listen to it, it was.
Oh, the piece of music it's so alive and it's so fresh, and it was written in, I'm not sure, I remember exactly, maybe 1919, maybe first performed. I don't know. There's a 9 in the number. Whatever it was, even now it seems fresh. There is just like he caught a piece of the eternal in that.
Wow.
And it is about the Rite of Spring, and it is about the pagan rites of spring. It's called the Rite of Spring. I don't know, man. Something, it really, that's the thing that made me want to learn how to compose.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I learned something new about you. Still,
yeah.
even now. Something new.
And
this is why things stay exciting.
And it's bizarre. It's orchestra, but it's bizarrely heavy. Like,
right.
Parts of it are like as heavy as like Metallica or whatever else. It's like he really, he got one hand on it. He maybe didn't like wrestle it to the ground, but he got a hand on it. My point is, in a very literal sense, that's sort of what has happened in music history. When they started out, there was a little like family restaurant 4-pack of crayons. And, it was monks and everything was in one key. Literally, there was only C. The reason the flat sign is like a lowercase b, right? Is because everything was in C, and there was no such thing as C or a mode. You know, monks wrote in modes, but they only had the 7 notes, and then they discovered a new note when something was first written in the key of F, and they needed a B flat. So it wasn't a B flat; it was a B in a lowercase because it's the other.
Oh.
It's the other B.
Oh my gosh.
So there was hundreds of years of time where there were not 12 notes. Because everything was in, and they slowly discovered more and more notes and keys to get to the original, to get to the current.
Fascinating.
And so sort of people have just added crayons to the coloring set over time.
It's kind of like how cultures discover colors, and you think, well, there's all the colors. Like, we can see all the colors.
Yeah, we were just talking about this.
Cultures. Yeah. You said that blue was one of the last colors to be, quote, discovered or named. I mean, it's not like people didn't see it,
they
but,
talked about it.
Yeah.
Because most things in nature aren't really blue, other than the sky, obviously, but everybody called that sky colored. You know? And so, like, what I was saying, there's a great Radiolab on it, speaking of Radiolab. And, like, there's all this stuff from, like, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, where he describes things in very weird colors. Like, he calls it the wine-colored sea or the whatever, and it's because the Greeks of that time did not have a word for blue. And they didn't have a word for gray. So, like...
Wow.
You know, he describes some colors in very weird ways because they just didn't have words at the time. And if you read more modern translations, they will they'll change the wording because obviously he meant blue or he meant this or that. But, like, if you read more accurate... By the way, I'm not a nerd. I'm coming off real bad in this.
We didn't plan any of what we've talked about.
Just got
This was all just due to the wine.
It
was sherry. I don't know. It was just due to where we started.
I guess I should...
But it was about music, so it still falls into the category of Music Life Weekly.
It sure does. It is interesting that new sounds evolve all the time, and then you get to stuff that's so classic, like just classic rock guitar. And I remember talking to someone, an older guy I knew, who had seen Jimi Hendrix open up for the Beatles, and he was maybe 10 or something, and they hated it because you'd never heard a distorted guitar. You'd never heard guitars feedback. You'd never heard guitar solos that were just like ripping guitar solos. You'd never heard a band be all loud and bashy. Everything was all like polite and Beatlesy. And Hendrix's first American tour was opening up for the Monkees, and apparently people hated it because they had just never heard anything like that. And then even this guy I was talking to was like 2 years later, it was the greatest thing you'd ever heard, and it was Jimi Hendrix and whatever, but like you needed to get eased in.
Isn't that interesting how it's like it's a cultural wave. It's not just individuals who have to get used to something. It's
right.
Like it's a whole group of people. It's a cultural acceptance.
You know, I mean, that actually dovetails in, and we're right back on track, folks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we were going to talk about some of the artist development breakthroughs I had this week, and one of them was literally having a breakthrough with someone who is, I don't know, they're in the Midwest somewhere. We had a breakthrough as far as they had been looking at performing in terms of you're on stage and people are in the audience quietly sitting there and grading you. More like an oral presentation at school or something than what an actual performance was. And this was the breakthrough, is that it is much more than me, the audience, watching you, the performer, and, you know, just watching you do your thing. There's a back and forth and the energy exchange of that. And like you say, sometimes at Petty Nick's things that I think is genius, and you said it at the show Saturday, like, you know, we'll get through some big jam thing and you'll be like, you guys did that. You guys gave us that energy. We took what you're giving us. And there is always that back and forth. It isn't a one-way street with an audience. And I think that's probably true whether you're doing public speaking or preaching or comedy or music or anything, it isn't this like, I'm going to recite a poem and everybody there's back and forth. And it, for this particular artist, I think it was a real breakthrough because they suddenly were like, I see it all differently now.
Oh, good.
You know, like I had been looking at it as a thing where I need to be note perfect. I need to be exactly right. And
Right.
I'm basically like almost like people's enjoyment of this is how perfectly I pull it off because
Right.
they're sitting here like watching me do my thing. And it is not that. It's a connection. We talk about it all the time. It's connecting with an audience. It's forming that bond. It's, you know, the thing I talk about, like taking that audience and turning them from, you know, we're not, luckily we get to perform to 2, 3, 500 people sometimes. We're not that many people in a room. All of a sudden we're all one thing. And it's all happening together. And it was so great to see somebody make that connection and kind of go like, oh, that's why when I went and saw some of my favorite artists, I had these experiences that were so deep and powerful.
Right.
It's because I was a part of it.
Right.
And they had never thought of that in terms of their own performance and their own, you know, artistry. Since we're talking about artist development, but it is very much that thing of, you know, it's a cultural, there is such a power in people feeling connected to other people.
Yes.
Whether it is remote, meaning this is the flavor of the moment. We all love Taylor Swift. You don't feel alone because you love Taylor Swift and you know, but you don't, you're not, or you're literally in the audience with the people and you're feeling it in the moment
Right.
that we are
And
all here.
we are all feeling the same thing, and it's tribal.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
It's something I've said before. Sometimes when shows are great for me, I'm as much in the audience as I am on stage.
Yes.
It's like,
when you're performing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when it's really good, I'm
Huh.
part of both.
Wow.
It's happening and I'm doing it, but I'm also watching it. Or I'm so tuned into the audience that, or maybe it's not just during my parts, but like during your parts.
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing, or Julian's parts, or whatever. Like
Right.
I'm equally
Experiencing the thing. That
with everybody.
that the leader is doing, or that.
And that's rare. We have great shows that are great response, but I don't quite get to that level of feeling
Right.
that I don't want to say out of body experience. It isn't an out of body
But
experience.
it's a sort of peak experience. It's like an out of time experience.
It's an elevated experience. And it we've talked about that out of time experience where you're like, that could have been 15 minutes, that could have been 2 hours, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it just lasted
Yeah,
long. Anyway,
yeah.
it was so great talking to an artist and seeing them have that breakthrough of like, oh my gosh, like I can look at this totally differently now.
Yeah. I think that's part of the value in, I mean, not to plug, I mean, there's so many people watching this. I'm going to throw an ad in the middle here. That's part of the value of working with someone like you for artist development. You can read that message, you can hear that message, you can talk to someone and get that message any number of times, but sometimes it takes an individual having a conversation with you about your experience to get that concept across in a way that makes a light bulb go on.
And
It's
that
not
is
like it's
so
complicated.
It isn't, and that's one of the things too where we didn't start trying to get to that place. I didn't start trying to impart that lesson. We just started talking about their anxieties about performing and their problems with this and their problems with that, or pick your own wording. But like, we just started having a conversation, and in that conversation,
That's what came up.
we found that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it is. Sometimes you don't know where you're going. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to, and again, it's all, it's one of those things. And it's why I love doing that work.
Yeah. Did you have other artist development breakthroughs? You said breakthroughs plural.
Breakthroughs plural. Yeah, a couple of similar things. I mean, one big thing, I guess, trying to keep this not too long.
We ate up a lot of time at the beginning.
Yeah. Too bad you can't edit audio. It's impossible. You can't edit. Anyway, one big thing that it is similar, but I ran into with some people, and I talked about it on a live stream, was the idea and concept of just being kind to yourself and forgiving of yourself as an artist, in the sense that it's a huge waste of time to beat yourself up over failures or things that didn't go as well as you wanted. And as you know, I'm very hard on myself. I push really hard on stuff. But I've learned over time, it is literal wasted effort to mope around feeling really bad. And I think in the one person, different client that I was talking to, I think it was a bit of a breakthrough to them to finally hear it and really take it in, that like, oh, it's fine that I didn't do XYZ. Or, you know, what I've talked about, you know, sometimes people set these outrageous goals for themselves for the week. Like, this week I'm going to do this, and I'm going to write 20 booking emails, and I'm going to write 3 songs, and I'm going to do all this. And then they don't do it. And then they feel terrible because they didn't do it. And then the next week, they're even less likely to crack a book and get back on the horse.
Because they feel like partial success is failure.
Exactly. And then they've got like, well, I don't even want to try again because I know how bad I made myself feel when I didn't last time.
And my goal's so high, I'm probably not going to reach it anyway.
Yeah,
and that's going to feel horrible.
Yeah, like, you know, just, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for lowering, well, just what I started out saying, being nice to yourself, being kind to yourself. When you're not having a great week, make sure your goals for the week, or however you divide it up, the day or the month or whatever, if you're not feeling on fire about making music, lower the bar. Anything is progress. And give yourself, when you're not really feeling it, give yourself some goals you can easily attain.
Yeah.
You know? Don't feel like you need to, I'm going to write 10 songs a day. Like, no, you're not. And if you, you know, beat yourself up over anything, or like we've talked about, a bad gig.
I mean, you can draw some lessons out.
Absolutely.
Fine,
Learn your lessons, but don't make yourself feel bad. Don't, you know, don't mope for a week over, you know.
Here, what lesson do I have to pull out? Okay, we've been doing Edge of 17 for 8 years. We've never done a show without playing Edge of 17 in Petty Nick's Experience. Now, we have changed the arrangement a couple times, but it's been the same arrangement for at least 2 or 3 years at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
And we had a gig at Village at the Peaks. It was called Tribute to the Tap. It was a bunch of tribute bands. And I somehow found myself at the end of the song after I started singing the bridge. So the song is supposed to go chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, instrumental, verse 3, chorus, first outro, solo, solo.
And then back to the chorus.
Oh, wait, no, there's a second outro. A second bridge. Anyway, it gives you the idea. This is a long
There's
song.
a lot to the song.
And I went, first chorus, bridge, suddenly I'm in the outro. I skipped like half the song. How do I learn from that? What is going on in my brain? Like, I don't even have to think about that song anymore. I don't even know what lesson to take from it.
I almost wonder, and maybe this couldn't possibly be true, I almost wonder if subconsciously, because as a result of you trimming 2 minutes out of the song, probably a good 2 minutes out of the song, we ended right on time.
Right. It was a 60-minute set, and we played 60 minutes exactly.
So I wonder if part of your brain might have been going, let's wrap this up.
Maybe.
But the rest of us on stage were
I know.
panicking.
I know.
Because
I didn't cue that at all. I literally do not know what happened. I was singing these words, and then I finished the section that I was singing, and I was like, wait, I just finished singing the second outro.
And
or the second bridge outro thing.
I caught it on like the last word of the section that like, wait, that's not where that ends.
What I don't like about that is like, sure, it worked out fine. In fact, it was probably the best way to do that song in that situation. But I don't like that my brain stopped working on me with no warning, and that I did not know what I was doing while I was doing it.
Right.
And I don't know how to pull a lesson out of that. It worries me. Like, how am I? Maybe I just lost focus, because that is a song we've done hundreds of times.
Right.
And I have seen that happen myself in some other songs that we've done a million times. That there's like this arc of a song's life where, like, the first time you play it, you're nervous because you don't know if you're going to remember the words. The second time, okay, you've broken the ice on that song. It's still a little nervy.
Right. Yeah, it's a little.
Third time, you're like, okay, you're settling in. Fourth, fifth, sixth, it's song's starting to feel good. 7, 8, 9, 10, up to like 100 times, the song is like, don't have to think about it. It's all good. It
just happens. Yeah.
And then at some point, you kind of fall on the other side of this arc where, for no reason, you start screwing up lyrics or forgetting how the song goes. It's like
stuff starts going wrong. That's funny.
Does that happen to you with anything? Is it just me as a singer?
As a weirdo? I've seen that happen with bands for sure, where it's like inexplicable why suddenly we're having trouble getting through this song after we've done this song, and God knows how many gigs I've done, and so I've been with bands where we've done hundreds of gigs, and like all of a sudden this one song just stops working.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is happening?
Such a weird thing.
Yeah, it is a very weird thing. It worked out great. I mean, one of the lessons to take away from it, that is a perfect example of give yourself a pass. It worked out fine. Take your lessons from it.
I'm not sure what lesson to take from it. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, but keep it in mind until you do figure out maybe what's something you can do. Or chalk it up to like, that was a weird thing that happened one time.
Yeah.
It'll never happen again. Rather than making yourself afraid to perform again or scared of that song or all those things I see performers do where they're like, I'm terrified to do that song because one time I did it and this thing went wrong, and so like I'm just so scared of that song.
Right.
And you're like, that's dumb. Like that's not the way to look at it.
Right. Maybe the lesson is sometimes you're just human. And sometimes things just go wrong.
That's what I'm talking about.
Tying it up neatly here.
And
right?
probably from the audience's and I had to learn this. This was a long learned lesson for me, because how often on stage, how aware of I am what is going on, and just kind of my ears. And it took me a long time to learn, but I learned from the audience's perspective is different from your perspective. Mm-hmm. You knew you messed up. We
no band.
It wasn't that big of a scramble. I just like, Ari, take it, go.
Like, Ari, solo.
Yeah. And then I, threw the end sign so that Tyler knew we were getting out.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, no one in the audience knew.
Yeah.
So what really, anyway. So that anyway was our you and I's first gig on Saturday.
Right.
Was
this was another running back
Toast
and forth.
to the Peaks.
Tribute to the Tap.
I have zero idea what that could mean. Anyway,
I think to the beer tap.
Okay. Lovely outdoor mall again in Longmont this time. Nice view of the mountains.
Yep.
And
we played there last year or the year before too.
Yeah, and we were playing with Project Foreigner, which is a Foreigner tribute band. Dave Stremmel.
Lead
the vocals were
indistinguishable from the original artist.
So great.
That band was tight. The backup vocals were so tight.
Yeah,
great.
They've been doing it definitely as long as I have been involved with Petty Nicks. So they've been, and it's the same group. Couple of female members. Embarrassed to say I haven't met them. We've done a handful of shows, bills with them. And Paisley Park closed the thing out, partially because Julian's out of town. and we had to run because you had another
Yeah.
gig in Boulder.
So this was fun. We went to Boulder first, and
Right.
I set up and did a quick little sound check, and then before sound check was complete, we had to run up to Longmont to do that gig. So we did that, and then we grabbed our stuff real quick afterwards. We ended up going 15 minutes late because we started 15 minutes late. So, I thought we had a comfortable hour in between shows, and it ended
Right.
up being more like 40, 45 minutes. But the drive is only 20 minutes, so
Yeah.
we got to Pamela Makala's show with 20 minutes to spare. So it was another 2 gig night.
And the venue was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It is called Stone Cottage Studios in Boulder. I guess they do stuff inside sometimes.
Okay.
Jamie Maynard owns and started the place.
Yeah.
But this was an outdoor show. Weather could not have been better.
Oh, it
Just
was
a
so-
gorgeous, really great sound, really great everything. We played. Your opener was Christopher Morse,
Right.
who is a former AD client of mine. We only worked a little bit, but we have worked together. So it's great to catch up with Christopher. And man, I told Pamela, I don't think she believes me when I tell her. She's so great.
Yeah.
Great singer, great keyboard player.
Yeah.
Really good songs.
Yeah. Really good person. Really like
Oh
working
yeah.
with her.
Yeah. And I've done Howl at the Moon gigs with her.
Right.
So I've also played with her
Right.
in a different context.
Yeah.
But you guys did,
Hour 15 maybe?
I think it was an hour 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was completely off book.
Yeah.
Off charts.
Off charts. Yeah.
Which was, I realized that when I was practicing earlier in the week that I know these songs, and looking at the chart, I wouldn't even really be reading it. My eyes would just be there.
Right.
But I'm playing by ear and by memory on these songs now, even the 2 new ones.
Yeah.
So,
and you were just
pretty well.
sailing through stuff. Great band. Mary
Claxton. Oh yeah, it was our
Yeah.
first gig with Mary on drums, and
Yeah.
you said I was tight with her.
No, you guys
so-
were very tight together. I think you guys were reading each other pretty well about where
Cool.
exactly some of the stops
Yeah,
and stuff.
it took a little while for JJ and I to get that close because I like to rush and I like to be on the front, and JJ is way on the back.
And Mary
So-
had a lot more upbeat
Yeah.
kind of view of the groove or whatever. But it locked up, man. You guys, I always call it sucking the air out of the room, where the band goes psst, 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 and if you do it really tight, it just feels like it
Like you've shrink wrapped.
it creates a vacuum. And there's just
I like that.
yeah. And you guys did it. What's your favorite Pamela? As far as being the bass player in that band, what's your favorite tune to do?
Oh gosh.
I felt like you were having a lot of fun on the blues tune. Most Pamela's
That's
stuff is
funny.
not blues.
No, she wrote a blues tune because
But she has one song that's blues.
Right. She wrote that because she was telling me she went to an open mic, and the guy who before her on keys, or I don't know, maybe the guitar player, was like telling her how a 12-bar blues goes. And she's like, you don't need to tell me how a blues goes.
Yeah.
I think I have it under control.
Yeah.
I play piano for a living. Anyway, and then she wrote this song. You say I felt like I sound like I was having fun. I was trying to have fun. I don't know. I have trouble with the blues. I've gotten way better since this is the one blues tune I've ever had to work on in my life.
Huh.
But I have had to work really hard to head to the right chord at the right time.
I would not have guessed that at all. So
Well, put in the time then.
here I am learning.
I mean, I think part of it is that that this one's in the key of C, so my 4 and my 5 are on a lower string rather than a higher string. So when I visualize the 1 4 5, it would be really easy if it was in like a key that's based on the lowest string.
right.
Because then I can just like go one, and then I can see it. But like here I am in the key of C, I'm thinking 1, and then 4's down and over here. Plus then I'm using an open string for a lot of the chord notes,
Right.
and that's what gets me.
Right.
So it's been a great song to make me get better at that.
Right.
And I'm finding, some little variations here and there, so that might be what you heard.
Yeah.
But as far as which song I like playing the most, oh gosh, I might just have to say her new one, Nemesis.
Oh, that's such a good
I
song.
mean, they're all probably equally fun. No. Okay, I love Nemesis, but I think the one I have the most fun playing is called To Open Yours, I think. No, it's not that one. What's it called? It's one where there's like just drums and bass in the verses. And so there's a lot of space for me.
Right. I know the one you're talking about.
I drive the song
I would never.
in the verses.
Yeah, I won't know the title, but I knew the one you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. G.
No, it's not in G. It's
Okay.
in B.
I guess then we're thinking of a different song.
Anyway.
Anyway, I thought the gig was great. Amanda was on guitar and
And Kate Farmer. So Amanda Morin on guitar and Kate Farmer on background vocals.
yeah.
And then that's the whole band. So
And you guys sounded great. It was like a really smooth,
cool.
That
was on one rehearsal a month ago.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. It was
Yeah.
very together for that.
Yeah, and Amanda's pretty new to the band too, and Mary's brand new.
Right,
so,
right. She's doing the fill-in. She is in the Burrows,
Yes.
which is, I haven't heard them, but I've heard several people rave about them. If you're Denver,
Well, they're like up north. They're in Fort
yeah,
Collins,
yeah, Colorado. Yeah, check out the Burrows.
Yeah.
Big, huge funk band. Gosh, anything else you want to...
No, I think that's good. That's good.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about our super fun Friday night, where we went to one of our favorite breweries. And if you haven't been to Joyride,
Yeah.
it's in Edgewater, which is like, Colfax and Sheridan. They have a lovely little...
Colfax?
It's 10 blocks from Colfax.
Oh, okay.
but
Okay,
just,
yeah.
Rough thing. It's by Sloan's Lake, and they have a nice view of the lake.
Yeah,
and
they have a rooftop patio.
rooftop thing, and we just hung out and chit-chatted.
And we saw a guy walk by with an enormous orange
Oh my gosh.
dragon on his shoulder.
Like
I mean, it was like 4 or 5 feet long.
it was 4 or 5 feet long.
And it was bright orange, and it was some kind of lizard
Yeah.
or monster. I don't know. But he was just walking around, like, meeting people, and this thing was hanging out on his shoulder.
Reanimated dinosaur. I don't know what it was. It was, but he was just like walking around the street.
We always see something interesting there. We saw a car crash.
Oh, yeah,
Where
that
no one
was-
got injured the last time we were at Joyride.
Yeah.
And then after Joyride, we went to Lakeside Pho. Mm-hmm. Pho. So good. So good.
Guys,
Highly recommended.
if you like that kind of Vietnamese food, pho, of course, just being a really great brothy soup, and you have fresh herbs and stuff you put in it, and Lakeside Pho,
Yes.
44th and Sheridan, and it's in a converted old house. So it's just, they've sort of like knocked down a wall or two, and maybe they have 10 tables. It's tiny.
Yeah, it's
you
tiny.
know?
And I think they should get more business than they do.
They really should.
I really hope they make it, because it is so good. And it's so much food for the money, too.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so we just had a fun Friday night, just hanging out a couple places. We didn't really do much.
Well, after that, I went up to Boulder and saw my friend Katie.
Oh my gosh, of course you did. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then we'll wrap it up with this. So I went up and saw my friend Katie from college, and another college friend of hers, Amanda, who lives in Boulder, joined us. And we were talking about what we do and stuff. And I said, I play music. And she said, do you do any shows? I'd love to come see you. And I said, well, in fact, I'm playing in Longmont tomorrow night. And she said, oh, well, I have tickets to another show. So I'll have to miss you. And I was like, well, what other show? She said, oh, Pamela and I was like, Pamela Makama? I'll be at that one too. So I saw her there.
What are the odds? That's so funny.
I know
that
the
you-
odds are so small.
And did she showed up, right?
She did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
With her kids.
But you said you guys had a great night and
Yeah, it was just like Katie hasn't aged a day.
yeah.
She looks the same as she did. Oh my gosh, how many years ago is it now? This is 2023. It's almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And she's a go-getter. She's an international executive coach, speaker, and author at this point.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
It is weird, that time warp of
Yeah.
it's like getting together with the no address guys and you're just like it's
Yeah.
just right back on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so who's this sponsored by?
Tonight we are sponsored, of course, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
You went before the hand, but that's fine.
I'm sorry.
We'll edit.
Try that again.
We'll edit. Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
There you go.
Okay.
And of course, Lakeside Pho
I was going to say.
and Joyride Brewery.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for all the good times. And thank you guys for listening. We, of course, really appreciate all of you guys showing up. And I think we're going to go with, we're going to start having some guests. And
we need to have some guests.
we're gonna span things. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right. We will see you
Next week.
next week, all two of you.